Hello everyone. Um, Welcome to another one of my videos where I use basically exposure therapy to help treat my choking phobia. So if you don't know what exposure therapy is, um, we can learn along together. It's basically a psychological technique whereby one uses gradual, repeated, goal-oriented um, um, exposures to one's fear or phobia in an attempt to reduce it. So my fear or phobia is choking to death on food, choking on food. And so basically what you have to do is three main things. One is write your anxiety. No, sorry, the first thing is plan to get anxious. Right? Plan to eat. We'll learn on this video about a person who's scared of snakes. So she'll have to also plan to do something revolving around snakes. Second thing you do is rate your anxiety before you do this thing you're going to plan to do, right, out of 100. Then you rate your anxiety afterwards. You'll see it'll kind of like crest or go down. It'll go up, it'll get to a peak, it'll go down for the most part. If you keep doing that, that peak, that curve will go lower and lower and lower, okay? Like from a tsunami to a wave, hopefully, a harmless wave. So I'm gonna do that. So I'm gonna rate my anxiety on a scale of 1 to 100. I have some rice and samosas here. So there's food here. Scale of 1 to 100. My anxiety level. My anxiety of choking is like a 10 out of 100. So I want to talk about this after, but let's just do the exposure first. One, because I'm hungry, and two, because, one, because I'm hungry, and two, because I usually make the videos like this. There's though something I do want to talk about, which is, I want to talk about after the video, after the exposure. Let's go on from here now, though. It's a scale of 1 to 100, it's at a 10, and I'm going to do the exposure now, and while I do that, I'll put on this video about a woman who has a snake phobia issue and how she's using exposure therapy to help her with that.
22-year-old Mariam Doom from Venezuela, clinical psychologist Lars Jürgen Ernst from Sweden, and Alf. He's an American corn snake. This multinational threesome is working together. Mariam helps out when Alf gets tangled in Ernst's belt loops, and Ernst helps Mariam put Alf around her neck. The picture looks simple enough. Nonetheless, you go back in time, just 3 hours ago, as Mariam was preparing to meet Alf for the first time. Mariam has a specific phobia, a fear of snakes. Other specific phobias include claustrophobia and a fear of thunder. Mariam's had almost no contact with snakes and doesn't know why she's afraid.
Since I remember myself, I remember being afraid of snakes.
She has trouble with movies.
I have to close my eyes, always.
At the zoo.
It's impossible.
And it interferes with her life.
But I have dreams of snakes. It's horrible. Like I like to school at night, and there's big eels and other snakes.
Mariam is a research technician here at Boston University's Center for Anxiety and Related Disorders. Psychologist David Barlow is director of the center and a pioneer in exposure therapy. His research demonstrates the outstanding success that's been achieved in treating phobias in a very brief time period, just 1 week. Some psychologists at the center use virtual reality to gradually introduce a patient to a feared situation. But Ernst bypasses all that. He treats specific phobias in just 3 hours.
What he's done, though, over the years, and he leads, in some way, he leads the world to this, is to strip the program down to its essence.
Barlow invited Ernst from Sweden to demonstrate brief exposure therapy.
In the hopes that we will be better able to apply it here in the United States.
And Mariam has agreed to be treated in front of her colleagues. Exposure therapy requires that patients gain experience with the feared objects.
Unless one is willing to experience one's own negative emotions and expose them as not dangerous and overwhelming or threatening, then they probably will not be able to overcome their anxiety and phobia.
But some say this intense exposure is cruel.
I disagree completely, because everything we do in the treatment is decided by the patient, and it is within this time limit a very gradual approach.
There are surprisingly few people, given the suffering that they have endured up until this point, who are willing to take that plunge and see if they can overcome it.
People have this idea that you suddenly pick out the animal and throw it in the lab for the patient. That will never happen.
It's teamwork. First interviews Mariam for 45 minutes and then describes and prepares her for treatment in an additional 15 minutes.
So I will challenge you to try things, but I will never force you to do anything that you're not.
It's critical to determine Mariam's worst fear, what's called her catastrophic belief. Her catastrophic belief is that if a snake is loose and she can't escape, she'll have heart failure.
How certain are you then that you might die as a consequence of that interaction?
Maybe 70%.
70%, okay.
No one has ever died or become ill either with Ernst or Barlow's treatment, but Mariam believes her anxiety won't diminish and she'll escape.
They can run away from the room.
The strong belief in the catastrophe, that is what's driving the avoidance behavior, and the avoidance behavior is the directly maintaining factor for the phobia.
But if Mariam doesn't escape, Ernst predicts her anxiety.
It will then gradually diminish as we go along in the treatment.
And importantly, there can be cognitive changes.
To help you get new information about that catastrophic belief.
Ernst does not prepare patients with relaxation or deep breathing.
I don't think it's necessary at all.
We discovered through systematic research evaluating this component that patients receiving these skills, who were trained in these skills, who then use them to cope with their anxiety or fear, actually did not do as well.
Deep breathing masks anxiety. If the patient doesn't learn, anxiety isn't dangerous. Here it will be used only if Mariam hyperventilates. Just prior to exposure, she rates her anxiety on a scale of 0 to 100.
70 or 80.
Now, it's time to go get the snake. Mariam's anxiety soars.
I can stand with my back towards you if you want to. And then I
Wait,
can,
when I close my eyes.
and then I can gradually turn. Standing here now with my back towards you.
Ernst does that for 2 minutes. What is Mariam thinking?
I was going to leave the room, and it was, stronger than me.
And what was Ernst thinking about her reaction?
Maybe not the strongest I've seen, but up there among the 25% strongest.
But he knows that initial anxiety is the best predictor of success. It's motivation to succeed.
Like, close my eyes.
She lets him turn around after 3 minutes.
Okay, I'm going to close my eyes. Okay? But don't come.
No? You're doing good. Just try to watch it. It's in my hands.
She looks for the first time.
That's the only way you are going to get new knowledge. It's completely peaceful.
She stands and smiles as her anxiety level comes down.
50.
She's learning.
But if you stay exposed to the situation long enough, you see that the anxiety level goes down.
She lets him enter after 8 minutes. She realizes that her catastrophic belief can't occur unless
I'm not doing that.
After 15 minutes, Ernst sits down. Some anxiety returns.
Try to breathe slowly and calmly, and your stomach.
She calms down.
So, what about a name for it? And where are you going?
I'm gonna move here.
Okay. What do you think it feels like?
This is it's a nice snake.
Her anxiety is down.
30, great. You're sitting about, what is this, 3 meters away?
She decides to approach.
Okay, I'm gonna approach you.
Yeah, good.
And hold it.
Yeah,
What psychological principles might account for the improvement so far?
it might be that you have, which leads to extinction of the anxiety reaction. You could say that the confidence is increasing, self-efficacy, Bandura's ideas come into play here from a cognitive point of view. I think what is happening here is that the patient is, with the help of therapist, accepting to take in new information.
There's also positive reinforcement and modeling. What's Burst's assessment so far?
Deep in my mind, I know it's going to work. That means that I don't have to be impatient, I can be calm.
Certainly his research supports his confidence. Across several types of specific phobias, even with children, Burst's research shows over 80% improvement compared with control groups. And the results are maintained at a 1-year follow-up.
Well, the research is actually very, very strong. Surprisingly strong when you consider the kind of dramatic nature of the intense approach.
It's close to 1 hour now, and she decides to name the snake.
Maybe Alf.
Alf.
Yeah.
Okay. Alf, that's a nice name. What would it feel like touching it?
I'm thinking about it.
Yeah,
After an hour, she touches Alf.
good. Did you touch it?
A little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
I can't believe I'm touching a snake.
You are touching the snake.
Progress is very uneven throughout the afternoon, but it provides an opportunity to challenge the catastrophic belief.
Oh, and you died.
No,
No, you survived. Great.
Alf is placed on Mariam's lap, but again, progress is uneven.
one more time.
One more time.
And finally, it's time to test Mariam's catastrophic belief. But Alf's more interested in the radiator and warmth.
The snake didn't do a lot of things that she predicted it would do.
What about Mariam's catastrophic belief?
Is it down to 0?
Yes.
Good.
Now it's time to pose,
A picture.
Understand?
and then help untangle Alf. As for her anxiety,
Yeah, and at the end, when I was helping here, it was 0. Completely. Not impressed with the last part, really. I was able to do that.
there was time for some celebration and congratulations. Reflect on the implications for treatment.
Thank you.
We have
Yes, yes.
no reason to believe that the 3-hour program would be any less effective than the 1-week
Are
program.
we finished?
So then it becomes an issue of, there are many patients who really don't have the time to take a week out of their lives.
The recommendation is that Mariam engage in maintenance, watch nature films, go to the park and the zoo.
Is that if I see a snake on the street, at least I'm gonna be able to see it and walk, and not see it and run.
And 2 months after treatment, we spoke with Mariam by phone.
I have dreams with snakes, but I didn't have any anxiety. I also watch movies with no problem and pictures, so I think that I'm doing great. I really feel confident that if I see a snake, I won't be scared.
Okay, so that's the first part of the video. That concludes the first part of the video. My anxiety went from a 10 in the beginning to a 9. As you can see, there was a peak. In my earlier videos, there was a peak of about 70, 80, and then it goes down slowly, slowly. And now the middle has become around 10, 15, 10 is what I'm seeing for the most part. And what I really want to get into now is one of the things I mentioned in my previous video. Excuse me. It is flooding therapy, or flooding exposure therapy. Well, what is flooding exposure therapy? It's kind of similar to what we saw in the video. Let's first remember what's exposure therapy. I mentioned in the beginning of the video. What's exposure therapy? Exposure therapy is where we slowly face our fears, right? That are or phobias, and what else do we do? We set a sort of like we basically set goals that get progressively harder, so that hopefully you don't get what he said in the video, bored of your exposures. Because once you get bored of your exposures, that's kind of like when it's time for you to start upping the game, upping the ante. And I touched on this in the last video about how when you have choking phobia, it's a bit more difficult to integrate it into your daily life, since I don't know if it would be wise, for example, to pick a food that, you know, is the food that you think you're gonna choke on, like for example steak, a juicy steak, meaty, you know, I like mine medium, not medium rare, I like mine medium, and you know, you got some steak and even if it's just here and you're eating it, right? I think that is good for some people. If they want that to be their ultimate goal, to have that uber food that they know they're gonna choke on 100% or 90% or whatever, and that if they think that they can just eat this, you're gonna get better, well, power to them. I'm not gonna be like, that's wrong. What I'm gonna say though is, in my personal opinion of dealing with exposure therapy for the past 3 months, I find that you should do what works for you. And if you feel, for example, you have no real inkling in wanting to eat steak, right? If you have no real inkling in wanting to go out to a restaurant, if these things aren't helping you live your life in a more anxiety-free way, what are you really doing but just wasting money and feeling good about yourself? It depends on where you are at your life. If your life, like my life, I just work most of the time, and if I'm not working, which is a lot of the time because I'm very lazy and I have anxiety, I'm gonna be on Netflix, right? I'm gonna be on my Xbox. So how much desire do I really have to go out to a restaurant and eat a steak dinner? Alright, just give me 1 second. I'm gonna take my pills off camera. Just give me about a couple minutes. No, I'll meet you guys outside in my car. But because of the power of lack of editing, you're gonna watch me. Okay, actually, I'll just start talking here. So that's what he was talking about. So that was what that was what I wanted to talk about before. I wanted to do the exposure, and yet I wanted to do the exposure because obviously I was hungry. So I talked about that. Well, let's talk about the video we watched as well. As you can see in our previous video, we had a person scared of bees, right? Bee phobia. Excuse me while I just put my shoes on. In this video, we have a person who is scared of snakes. I do not believe there was any sort of traumatic trigger for this person, or at least that was not shared in the video. Because if you remember correctly in the last video, the person who was scared of bees had a traumatic event whereby he was fixing his air conditioner, and when he opened it, a whole bunch of bees were living in there and kind of attacked him, right? And that's kind of why he was having it kind of precipitated this choking phobia. I kind of have a similar story, which I have recounted a couple times here on this channel. I might, again, why not, right? It's better to just do it this way rather than have people like, well, look at my last video, like I'm some boss who can command his viewers to just look at things. I was eating pierogies, and as I was eating them, I was high, so I think I was a bit, I don't want to say just hypersensitive would be the right word, and perhaps anxious because I just got over, I just broke up with my ex-boyfriend, and also depressed because I just broke up with my ex-boyfriend. So oh, it's snowing? No. Oh, and so all right, plus I don't know, plus why is it so dark? Oh my goodness. Plus well, there are a lot of things going on in my life at that time. Anyway, I was eating the pierogies and I just puked before eating the pierogies because it seems like it was acid reflux. At the time I thought it was like heat stroke. Like later on, a week later, I was like, why did I puke? Like, then I realized, no, it was more just acid reflux. Like, I know that feeling now to a certain extent, and the risk factors involved. So I puked, and then I decided I wanted to eat. And so obviously I learned that when you puke, your esophagus wears the lining and the stomach muscles, right? The acid kind of wears it away over time. So, I was hypersensitive. I didn't know at the time that. Anyway, so I was eating the pierogies. So what I'm saying is I should have been prepared for my swallowing to be, affected by the vomit and whatnot. You know what I mean? And so I'm eating the pierogies, and I guess I put a bit in my mouth, and for all I know, it just could have been too much. It didn't seem like an overly generous portion for me. I think it was just I'm not sure, I was eating it and I was chewing it, and then I just went, oh, like that. Like I thought I was choking. It was like I became almost hysterical. And that was probably the first time I felt real, genuine, like, anxiety. I mean, as an adult. And when you're a kid, you're scared of everything. I mean, as an adult. That was the first time I felt like, this is it, like God's gonna take me, this is my life, I'm done and dead now. I didn't even believe in God, but you know what I mean? Like, this is it, I'm ready, type of thing. And it wasn't until, I think, after I didn't, like, by hysterical, I mean, I didn't know I started screaming hysterically. I meant, internally, I went hysterical. I thought I was dying, and I went, after the whole noise I made, I just, I think I sat up, and I looked at where I was eating, and then I rationalized, oh, it must have been because I was eating, this way, not sitting up, not realizing that when you're anxious, you don't really think about those things don't really, like, that's a rational thought, and that's something it's like normal to think about. It's just that when you're under anxiety and thinking you're choking, that thought doesn't register as powerful as it should be, as, for example, if you weren't so anxious. Anxiety tends to filter out things that try to comfort you. A rational thought, your parents telling you always eat up when sit up when you eat. Maybe it's just one of those things where it's just, you're dumb. And now you're gonna die as a dumb person choking to death. And so, after I calmed down, I put the pierogies away, and I kind of just, I think that was the first time I kind of started Googling medical illnesses. I think the first one was like swallowing problems. Swallowing, you know. You know how you type in swallowing and on Google it autofills? It's probably something like swallowing problems, swallowing difficulty, trouble swallowing. And then I learned about the term dysphagia. And then once I learned about the term dysphagia, when I started Googling dysphagia, whoo, did I learn a lot about other people who, I guess, also learned about dysphagia. And, man, we did some learning. I learned a lot about how the throat muscles work. I learned a lot about my acid reflux, and a lot about anxiety. This is the first time I heard about autism, Asperger's syndrome. I learned so much about how everything's connected to, you know, the anxiety is connected to the hypersensitivity to your muscles, and how you think, and how you think the way you feel, and all these different things, you know, that I was exposed to for basically the first time. Because in my family, we didn't talk about anxiety. We didn't talk about these things. As far as I know, we just kind of, you know, like, we never really had that big, you know, I would say problems. Like when I was younger, growing up, like in high school, I would like smoke cigarettes to deal with my anxiety. And I'm sure my brother would do the same thing. You know, perhaps he would do other things like hang out with friends, and like, no, we're normal kids. Same with our parents. Like, they fought a little bit, and definitely I think produced some anxiety within them. And I think they would have probably greatly benefited from some sort of couples therapy. I mean, this is way too late. It's never gonna happen now. What I'm trying to say is, we didn't talk about anxiety a lot in our family. So when I started learning about anxiety and Asperger's syndrome and autism, I was like, well, okay, I think I probably have some sort of autism then. Just a lot of the boxes are just clicking. This idea of, you know, repetitive behaviors. Because at this time, I was also doing something very odd. I was looking at my friends' crotches and random strangers' crotches a lot. And I mean, so much so that I would have to consciously tell myself not to look at their crotches, and that would just make it worse. And I don't know where this came from. If it has to do with, like, you know, me being gay, me coming out. Does it have to do with me being attracted to my friends? I don't know. I'm just spitballing here. Does it have to do with, like, you know, I'm not sure. One of my friends who was close to me, actually, when I confided with him about this, he told me, you know, I kind of had the same issue, and you will get over it. You'll grow out of it. And he was right. I did grow out of it. I don't have this obsessive urge to look at people's crotches anymore. I'm kind of like that super bad kid that you would draw all the, you know, penises. I think it was just some sort of obsessive things to maybe calm me down and tell me that it's going to be okay, like everything's going to be okay. Because I was so anxious during those times. After the whole first, you know, problem. And I remember after researching 2-3 months, I realized I was convinced I had, like, Schottky cells. Schottky cells? Okay. I remember distinctly reading about it on Wikipedia. It was like 11 at night or something. And I go up to my garage and I have a cigarette. I remember I'm having my cigarette. I remember telling myself, I have Schottky cells, or something like, I have Schottky syndrome. And I was truly convinced of it, even though I realized no doctor diagnosed me with this. And also during this time, I'm probably eating less nutrition. I'm not eating. Like, I'm eating, like, little, very little. I'd only eat when my parents are home, right? And I'd eat, like, just as much as I can, soft foods. Like, I would, even hard-boiled eggs at that time was a bit of trouble. I would, like, take fries that looked like the edges were kind of burnt off and take all of them off. I would count my fries, make sure there's like maybe 25 or 30, and that's all I'm gonna eat, you know. And eventually, I don't know who I told. Eventually, I decided, I asked my father to take me to the doctor, and I was diagnosed with gastroesophageal reflux disease. So, and that's when I kind of realized there's answers to the problems you're having that are not just something you can kind of just, like, you know, not, like, I don't want to say ignore, but, like, I mean, what I understood from that was that the answers are more rational, perhaps. You know, like, I went there, and he didn't diagnosed me then and there. He ordered some tests. He ordered a barium swallow and a esophageal thing where they put a camera up your nose, down your throat, into your stomach. And the barium swallow, I have to drink this liquid, and I didn't really like it, but I drank a little. I mean, I drank a little bit of it. I don't think the test was clear. They said it was because they were confident enough to tell the doctor, look, he has GERD, even though they did say patient was uncooperative. Not realizing that not everyone likes to eat milkshakes, like I don't. What do they do to the people who like milkshakes? Really? What do they do in the society for people who have swallowing difficulties and don't like milkshakes? Because that's basically what you're told to eat. It's like a chalky milkshake so that the x-ray contrast can see the throat muscles and whatnot. Anyway, and that still to this day sometimes gets me paranoid. And then I realized just the stupidity of it, the fact that, you know, it's just overblown, irrational, you know, like you have acid reflux, and no amount of going back and getting more and more tests will not take the diagnosis away, because you have other symptoms. You feel nausea, you feel gas, you can feel it in your chest sometimes. You don't take your pills after 3 or 4 days. So, and then they did the thing where they gave me like basically liquid morphine and put this thing up my nose and basically said breathe through your nose, and they said breathe through your how do they do it? No, they said breathe through your nose. They put a tube up my mouth, and it just kept going. It was like I was choking, and then they're just like, breathe through your nose, breathe through your nose. And then I realized I could breathe through my nose, and this thing was in my mouth. It was just, I was really, really high. They gave me like really, really good meds, like all those are gone. And after I came to, they sent the report to the doctor and said there was no like basically the same diagnosis. You have gastroesophageal reflux disease. So that's where I kind of first started learning about lifestyle changes with gastroesophageal reflux disease, like quitting smoking and exercise, avoiding fatty foods, stuff like that. And you know, I'm sure why I'm recounting my entire psychological history to everyone. I'm just rambling right now. I forget where I was going with this. All right, the woman with the bee phobia. So there was no traumatic thing for her, at least in the video. And one thing I disagree with what the doctor was doing was he was forcing her to go do too much too fast. And I think they had a relationship, a special relationship, where she trusted him implicitly and explicitly. I don't mean sexually, I mean professionally. To the point where like she may have even had like inappropriate attachment to him, you know, like when a patient develops an inappropriate attachment to their psychiatrist or psychologist or mental health worker or social worker. I know I sometimes have those feelings. I'm gonna be honest. Sometimes I have feelings about, like, you know, just images, you know, and you think they're okay, like images of having sex with your psychologist. You think it's okay because you don't. He's like, you know, he's gonna help you. He's gonna, you know, it's very, very. You gotta have professional boundaries. I know they teach that at the psychologist. You gotta have professional boundaries with people. And I just think that if it wasn't for him crossing his boundaries with her, she would not have gotten better so fast. She was at a 70. She went down to basically a 0 in 3 hours. Like, I get it. It was a long exposure. It was 3 hours. I just think there's another way of doing it where you could do it gradually over 3 months and not feel as scared. You know how they mentioned they don't prep the patients with deep breathing exercises? I always tell you guys, I've even done this on video and I've seen it work in my life, to do deep breathing exercises, diaphragmatic breathing through your diaphragm. I've heard belly breathing helps. The point is where you just let the air, you know, for me is I like the air going in through my nose, so once it reaches like the hole here in my throat, it kind of like comes out. It's like a cycle it creates, and it's just so like peaceful. You know, it's so, like, you're in control. You're in control of what you're doing. You're in control of your thoughts, and you're in control of your you're in control of your breath, and so hopefully you'll start getting control of your thoughts. You'll start in control of your anxiety. And she could have been better served through slower exposures. I think I don't know, they didn't mention it, but I believe what they were using was called flooding therapy, which is, you know, the exact opposite exposure therapy subset that I'm using. Which is kind of like slowly, you know, as I said, I'm not a big fan of the goals. I just want to do this exposure over and over and over again until I get completely bored with it and realize anxiety is not real. It's other people that just want maybe results faster. Maybe that was what her, what she wanted to do. Just, maybe, because I don't know her. I'm just passing judgments based on a simple video I watched, no more than 10 minutes, 12 minutes, right? And yeah, I believe that she could have gotten better, slower, without, she was basically on the verge of crying. Did you see how much distance between her and her psychologist? And there's no arguing with the results. She was definitely saying at the end, when she was helping the psychologist get the snake out of, I guess, the guy's belt, she was at a 0. So, I've had 0s and they're great days. So maybe the psychologist, maybe it works. I don't know. I'd rather just go slower. Let's see, what else do I want to talk about today? That video, I think, is interesting, also because it kind of helps me realize, like, I'm not alone out there. Like, I'm not. I obviously know these videos are very popular, and they're basically just video journals for me, and it's good to know that there's other people out there experience. Not that there's that's good to know, but what I mean to say is that, and I mean this really, really, really sincerely, what's really good to know for someone who has anxiety is that there are doctors out there who completely understand what you're going through. Completely, 100% understand every one of your symptoms, every one of your fears, and every one of your ways you deal with those fears. They've seen it all. And when you see a doctor like that, it's really comforting, because most people that you meet don't have that much awareness of anxiety to the extent that doctors do. Like, they may. It's just, for me at least, a doctor is like saving lives. He's like safe. Doctors have always been safe for me. They've always been there to help, right? So when a doctor is looking at you and you can tell that he knows exactly what you're feeling and thinking, you feel so much better. Because, as you know, anxiety is one of those things you can't show a doctor. So if you're wasting your time explaining it, it makes it worse. I've talked about this before, how I went to a psychologist one time and he had no idea what I was trying to get accomplished. Which is hard, because I'm trying to explain to him my problem, and, it's hard for me to even know sometimes what I want to get accomplished. It was just, I wasn't impressed in his counseling services. And at the end of the day, you get what you pay for. I was only paying him $20, $30 a session, so it's probably better off just giving that money to charity. Probably would have felt better. I'm gonna be honest. Should have just given that money to charity and would have felt better. Had some, been like, alhamdulillah, it could be worse, and I'm getting rewarded with Allah, and may all the evil that's around me go away. These are great ways of getting rid of the evil around you, and inshallah, you do that. Who's to say Allah may not cure you? This is just me thinking. This is not for public consumption, even though this video is public. This is just me thinking. My rationale of why I could have done this rather than that. So, I'm gonna get high now. I'm not gonna get high. I'm gonna smoke like 5, 6, maybe 7 hits of a marijuana joint. Oh yeah, I'll talk about my plan. And then I'm gonna smoke the 5, 6, 7 hits of a marijuana joint. Then I'm probably gonna listen to some music, or just veg out on the TV until my shift. Actually, I gotta perform my shift. Probably won't take a shower. I'll just step out the door and take a shower in the afternoon. In the evening nowadays. Better take a shower in the evenings now, anyway. I like taking a shower in the evenings because my exorcist, he recommended this. Like, I believe in exorcisms. They're not. The word is translated as exorcisms in English. The real word, though, is incantation, which basically, it has a connotation that the person will, say certain words that are, and as an incantation. Basically, it's basically you trust in God, and you go to this person who will recite Quran over you and do hijab, basically wet cupping or dry cupping on your back, where they kind of do small kind of bloodletting on your back. And it helped me a lot with my anxiety. It helped me a lot in terms of getting me back to a place where I could finally be able to clear my head and remember Allah. It really helps when you're already in a very, very good space. He told me though, for example, like you could get, he said like you could get repossessed. Like if he said during the exorcism, the ruqya, if you feel you're getting repossessed, you know, kind of like let me know, you know. It's just odd because I don't really know what that means. How does someone know they're getting repossessed, right? Unless they're an American living in 2008. No, but seriously, that was really bad. That was a bad joke. A lot of people lost their jobs and their homes in the financial crisis. And I don't want to just be like, oh, it's so funny. I'm just trying to lighten the mood here because I was talking about something really, really dark, I think. Again, guys, I don't condone marijuana for children. It's perfectly legal where I live. I believe, yeah. Unless you're like 18. Right? You shouldn't have access to marijuana or alcohol. Just do school for 18 years and then at least have a minimum level of education. And then if you want to experiment on your 18th birthday or whatever, you know, I wouldn't recommend it. You know, I rather would have done other things than to smoke marijuana in my high school years. Could have been reading a lot more. You know, I could have been scouting colleges more. I could have been preparing for college more. I could have been, right? Focusing on the family situation more, maybe helping my parents, you know what I mean? Like not fighting so much, or helping my brother with his problems, you know, helping out financially with the household maybe. There's a lot of things I could have been doing, working more. My memory is really, really bad right now. Like, I'm just going, I don't know why too. I just one hit. Like, it's medium grade weed. Well, for most people at the dispensary, I would say it's low grade. You know what I realized? When I go to the dispensary, when I mean dispensary, it's like a weed store we have here in Canada. When I go there, I realized a lot of the people there buy pre-roll cigarettes, pre-roll marijuana. I used to go there and always used to get like the flower. They literally just give you flat buds and you break it up and put it in your pipe, joint, whatever, vaporizer. And I kind of didn't like doing that anymore because I ended up touching the marijuana, and in Islam, marijuana is considered impure. It's like pig or alcohol. So you gotta wash your hands before you pray. You just don't want it around you. It's, you know, it's just, it's filthy. It's filthy. I don't think angels like it around it either. And basically, you should keep yourself pure from those things. You should keep yourself tahir, or pure, rather than, you know, in a state of najasa or impurity. And so, that's why I started getting pre-rolls, because the marijuana is there in the cigarette, and I just feel like I touch it less. Sure, the cannabis oils gets on my lips, and sure, it gets on my hands and whatever. You know, cannabis oil. You know, when you're dealing with cannabis products, cannabis is going to get on you. It's just, I'd rather have it in a joint form, so I know at least to a certain extent. Like, it's not all over the place. When you buy flour, it's gonna end up all over the place. It's gonna end up in your car. You're gonna see it in your bed. You're gonna see it in your sofa. You're gonna see it like the weirdest places. You'll find, like, you'll be like, is that weed? And then you look at it, it's like a small speck of weed, you know, like in your food or in your drink. You're like, how did it get there? Because you know what happens when we stoners, we you know, we make our joints, or whatever. We put it in our pipes, and then we get high, and then I know this happens to me a lot. I forget where I put my weed. I completely just blank out, you know. That's why, for the most part, I keep my weed in one place, and so if it isn't there, I don't really fret. I look around for a little bit and consign myself to the fact that it's gone, and just, you know, that's it. You know, when I was younger, I remember it was a lot big problem, at least for my friends, maybe for me too. I think if I remember correctly, me as well. We'd always have problems locating our weed. Like, we would just get high, and then we would just forget that we had to keep our weed safe, you know, because we were so, back then it was illegal, so we were also hiding it in places like in our underwear and stuff, so for the cops not to get us. And it was just, it would get so much confusing for us stoners. We don't deal with too much thinking, right? And I'm kidding, you know, to a certain extent that is a stereotype. It's interesting about thinking and weed. The stereotype is it really true? I've heard weed kills brain cells. I've also heard weed helps you relax. I don't know, like, Willie Nelson smokes weed. What's his name? Patrick Stewart smokes weed. So I don't know. What is there, like, some sort of correlation or relationship between intelligence and marijuana or not? I don't know. That's something I think about. Oh, this video is getting longer and longer. What the heck? I'm gonna do a quick review of this video. Of this weed. I just want anyone to be aware who, I guess, is watching this video and also lives in Ontario and goes and gets their marijuana, right, from the Ontario Cannabis Store. If you get this type of weed, Tweed, Houndstooth, Sativa, brand, 1 gram joint, 18% THC approximately. If you get this, don't. Return it immediately. Because they give you a gram joint. And this is what happens after about half a gram. I smoked half a gram about yesterday. This is what happens. I'm trying to smoke the other half gram here. If you can see here, because the weed, I'll show you when you buy one, how much marijuana they give you, and how much they expect you to light. It's even the guy who I bought it from warned me of this. Let me see here. Look, this is how much they give you. Okay, for I think $15 they give you this. Okay, it's a gram marijuana. This is how much. This is what it gets. You know, this is about, I say, half a gram now, right? It's approximately half a gram. Thing is, when you first light this, it's gonna start to canoe because it's top heavy. It's not until you get around here that, you know, it becomes a half gram joint and you can actually smoke it. So one thing I would recommend for people who like pre-rolls and don't like their joints canoeing, don't get gram joints. Get half gram joints because they'll canoe way less. And the other thing is, like, look at it. I just thought to myself, I should get my money back. You know, because I'm trying to smoke this. I've been trying to smoke this, and it won't stay lit. And the guy warned me when I bought this. He said, be careful. These ones, he said something like, be careful. These ones have, they tend to canoe, basically. He said, be careful when you're lighting them, they tend to canoe. And I knew this earlier because I already bought these before. And I said, oh yeah, because the 1 gram ones. He's like, yeah, you know, the gram ones. And I was like, yeah, you know, because when you put a whole gram of weed in a joint, you know, I don't smoke gram joints. Who smokes gram joints? No disrespect to stoners who love their weed. I love, you know, weed is, you know, I'm smoking it here. Thing is, too much. Like unless you're gonna get a vaporizer, why do this to your customers and you know, people who enjoy your products? How do you expect it to light that? It's like a hole. Do you see the hole in there from all the canoeing? So basically the weed canoed to one side, causing the middle to basically ember. So it would burn, it just would not connect to the rest of the weed inside. It would have its own little canoe, if you will, to kind of right, burn on its own. That's not the definition of canoeing. If you don't know what canoeing is, it's when the joint only, you know, burns to one side, making it look like a canoe, right? And you don't want that to happen, because then you're wasting weed on the other side. You want to even burn on the whole side. That's almost impossible here, because if you look at it, how do you get an even burn on both sides? There's two sides are missing, and there's a hole in the middle. So that's just my quick PSA for anyone who wants to get marijuana from the OSC. I'm sorry, the OCS. Don't get the spark. Don't get the 1 gram pre-rolls from Houndstooth. 18 gram sativa. It's just if you want a sativa, get half gram. Get half grams. Video's going much longer than on average. It's not the longest video I've made. It's definitely on average. It's getting longer. Look at this. The prices at the OCS are they're overpriced. I'm gonna be honest with you, they're overpriced. I can get cheaper stuff from my dealer. Not that I want to, because the only thing is his weed is much higher in THC content. I'm a big fan of the lower THC content weed. That's just something I'm a fan of. Look at what you guys are making me do. I don't even know if I'm going to smoke the rest of this. I'm going to have to kind of re-roll it for you guys, because of how horrible it rolled. I don't even know how I'm going to smoke the rest of this. It's just a waste. OCS, I want my money back. There's at least a couple dollars of marijuana in there. I'm lucky if I can smoke all of it, because it should be burning by now. No one likes this. This should already be burning. Ay, 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 ay. You know that guy in Power Rangers? Ay, 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 ay. What's happening right now? Every time I light it, it catches on fire. So, enough said. Oh, shush. Okay. I think I'll end the video here. I think I've had enough fun talking about my stuff. With my 10 to a 9? Or was it a 10? It either stayed the same or went down one. I think it went down one. Alright guys. Hope you guys enjoy my videos. Videos every day except for Saturdays. And stay with it.